In this video I'm going to talk of planes of correspondence. So now you gotta know this, or you gotta understand this. The planes of correspondence: as above, so below; as below, so above. That's the great second Hermetic principle. Embodies the truth that there is a harmony, agreement, and correspondence between the several planes of manifestation, life, and being. This truth is a truth because all that is included in the universe emanates from the same source, and the same laws, principles, and characters apply to each unit or combination of units of activity, as each manifests its own phenomena upon its own plane. So now, for the purpose of convenience of thought and study, the Hermetic philosophy considered that the universe may be considered into three great classes of phenomena, known as the great planes. The first one is the great physical plane. The second is the great mental plane. And the third is the great spiritual plane. So now, these divisions are more or less artificial, for the truth is that all of these three divisions are but ascending degrees of the great scale of life, the lowest point of which is undifferentiated matter, and the highest point that of spirit. So now, moreover, the different planes shed into each other, so that no hard and fast division may be made between the higher phenomena of the physical and the lower of the mental, or the between the higher of the mental and the lower of the physical plane. So in short, the three great planes may be regarded as the three great groups of degrees of life manifestation. While purpose of this little book do not allow us to enter into the extended discussion of or explanation of the subject of these different planes, still we think it well to give a general description of the same at the point. So now, at the point of beginning, we may as well consider the question often asked by the narcissists, who desires to be informed regarding the meaning of the word plane, which term has been very freely used and very poorly explained in recent work upon the subject of occultism. The question is generally about as follows: is a plane a place having dimensions, or is it merely a condition or state? The answer is no, not a place, nor ordinary dimension of space, and yet more than a state of condition. It may be considered as a state or condition, and yet the state or condition is a degree of dimension in a scale subject to measurement. Somewhat paradoxical, isn't not? But let us go deep and examine the matter. So now, the dimension, or a dimension, is a measure in a straight line, lighting or relating to a measure. The ordinary dimension of space are length, breadth, and height, or perhaps length, breadth, height, thickness, or circle. So this fourth dimension may be called the dimension of vibration. So the fourth dimension is called, it may be called or called the dimension of vibration. It is a fact well known to modern science as well as to the Hermetics who have embodied the truth in their third Hermetic principle that everything is in motion, everything vibrates, nothing is at rest, from the highest manifestation to the lowest, everything and all things vibrate. Not only do they vibrate at different rates of motion, but as in different directions and in a different manner. So now, the degrees of the rate of vibrations consult the degrees of measurement on the scale of vibrations, or in other words, the degree of the fourth dimension. And these degrees form what occultists call plane. The higher the degree of rate of vibration, the higher the plane, and the higher the manifestation of life occupying that plane. So that well, a plane is not a place, not yet a state or condition, yet it possesses qualities common to both. So now, so now we shall have more to say regarding the subject of the scale of vibration in our next sessions. So now, in which we shall consider the hermetic principle of vibration. You will you will kindly remember, however, that the three great planes are not actual divi- divisions of the phenomena of the universe, but merely terms used by the Hermetics in order to addict the thought and study of the various degrees and forms of the universal activity and life. So, so now the atom and matter, the unit force, the mind of man, and the being of each archangel are all but degrees in one scale, all fundamental, the same. The difference between soul and matter of degree and rate of vibration are all creation of the all and have their own existence within the infinite mind of the all. The Hermetic subdivided each of the three great planes into seven minor planes, and each of these later are also subdivided into seven subplanes, all divisions being more or less shading into each other and adopted merely for convenience of scientific study and thought. The great physical plane and its seven minor plane is that division of phenomena of the universe which includes. So now, but there is another dimension of created things or measure in the straight line, known as the occultists and the scientists as well, although the latter have not as yet applied to the term dimension to it. And this new dimension, which by the way is the much speculated about the fourth dimension, is the standard used in determining the degrees of planes. Hmm? So now, all relates to physical or material things, force and manifestations. It includes all forms of that which we call matter and all forms of that which we call energy or force. But you must remember that the Hermetic philosophy does not recognize matter as a thing in itself or as having a separate existence, even in the mind of the all. The teachings are that matter is but a form of energy, that is, energy at a low vibration of a certain kind. Hmm? Of a certain kind. So now, so now, and accordingly to the Hermetic classify matter under the head of energy and give to it three of the seven planes of the great physical plane. The seven minor physical planes are as follows. The first is the physical plane or the plane of matter. The third is the plane or the second is the plane of matter. So the fourth is the plane of ethereal substance. The fifth is the plane of energy. The sixth is the plane of energy. The seventh is the plane of energy. So now you gotta understand this or you gotta know this. The plane of matter comprises the form of matter in its form of solid, liquid, and gases as generally recognized by the textbooks of physics. So the plane of matter comprises certain higher and the second the second plane of matter comprises certain higher and more substantial forms of matter, of the existence of which modern science is but now recognizing the phenomena of matter in its phases of radium belonging to the lower subdivision of the plane or of this manner plane. So now the second the second plane of matter comprises form of the most substantial matter or the most substantial matter, the existence of which is not suspected by ordinary scientists. The plane of ethereal substance comprises that which science speaks of as the ether, a substance of extreme intensity and energy, pervading all universal space and acting as a medium for the transmission of waves of energy such as light, heat, and electricity. So now, this ethereal substance forms a connecting link between matter, so-called, and energy, and partakes of the nature of each. The Hermetic teachings, however, instruct that this plane has seven subdivisions, as have all of the manner planes, and that in fact there are seven ethers instead of but one. So now, next above the plane of ethereal substance comes the plane of energy, which comprises the ordinary forms of energy known to science, its seven subplanes being respectively heat, light, magnetism, electricity, and attraction, including gravitation and chemical and affinity. So, and several other forms of energy indicated by scientific experiments, but not as yet named or classified. The seven planes or the seven energy or the plane of energy comprise seven planes, subplanes of higher forms of energy not as yet discovered by science, but which have been called nature's finer forces and which are called into cooperation in its manifestation of a certain form of mental phenomena and by which such phenomena becomes possible. So now, the planes of energy comprise seven subplanes of energy so highly organized that it bears many of the characteristics of life, but which is not recognized by the minds of men on the ordinary plane of development, being available for the use of beings on the spiritual planes alone. Such energy is unthinkable to ordinary man and may be considered almost as the divine power. The beings employing the same are as gods compared even to the highest human types known to us. The great mental plane comprises of those. So now, the great mental plane comprises of those forms of living things known to us in or denied life, as well as certain other forms not so as well known except to the oc- oc- except to the occultics. So now, the classification of the seven man mental planes is more or less satisfying unless complemented by the elaboration explanation which have fallen to the purpose of which particular work, but we may as well mention them. So now they are as follows: the plane of mineral mind, that's the first. The second, the plane of elemental mind, that's the second. The third is the plane of plant mind, that's the third. The fourth, the plane of element mind, that's the fourth. The fifth, the plane of animal mind. The sixth, the plane of elemental mind. The last one, the plane of human mind. So now, the plane of mineral mind comprises the state of condition of units, of entities or groups and combination of the same, which emanates the form known to us as mineral chemicals. So now, you gotta understand this, or you gotta know this. These entities must not be confounded with the molecules, atoms, and corpuscles of themselves, the latter being merely the material bodies of or form of these entities, just as a man's body is but is a material form and not himself. Hmm? So these are the entities is a material form called not for himself. So now you gotta know this, or you gotta understand this. These entities must not be confounded with the molecules, atoms, or corpuscles themselves, the latter being merely the material bodies or forms of these entities, just as a man's body is but is a mineral form, not himself. These entities may be called souls in one sense. So now, and are living beings of a low degree of development, life, and mind, just a little more than the units of living energy, which comprise the higher subdivisions of the highest physical planes. The average mind does not generally attribute the position of the mind, soul, or life to the mineral kingdom, but all occultists recognize the existence of the same, and the modern science is rapidly moving forward to the point of view of the Hermetic in this respect. So now, the molecules, atoms, have their loves and hates, like and dislikes, attractions and repercussions. So now, some of the more enduring of modern scientific minds have expressed the opinion that the desire and will, emotion and feeling of the atoms differ only in a degree from those of men. We have no time or we have no time or space to argue this matter here. The occultists know it to be a fact, and other I referred to some of the more recent scientific works for outside collaborations. There are there are the unusual seven subdivisions of these planes. So now, the plane of elemental mind. The plane of elemental mind comprises the state of condition and the degree of mental and vital development of a class of entities known to the average man, but recognized to the occultist. They are invisible to the ordinary sense of man, but nevertheless exist and play their part of the drama in the universe. So now, their degree of intelligence is between that the mineral and chemical entities on the one mind and of the entities of the planet kingdom on the other. There are seven subdivisions to these planes also. So the planes of plant so the plane of plant mind in its seven subdivisions comprise the state or condition of the entities comprising the kingdoms of the planet world, the vital and mental phenomena of which is fairly well understood by the average intelligent person. May new and interesting scientific works regarding mind and life in plants having been published during the last decade. Plants have life, mind, and souls, as well as have the animals, man, and Superman. So now, the plane of elemental. The plane of elemental in its seven subdivisions comprise the state and condition of a higher form of elemental and or unseen entities playing their part in the general work of the universe. The mind and life of which form a part of the scale between the plane of plant mind and the plane of animal mind. The entities partaking of the nature of both. The plane of the animal mind in its seven subdivision comprises the state of condition of entities, being or souls emanating the animal forms of life. So now, familiar to us is our own. The plane of elemental. The plane of elemental in its seven subdivision comprises of those entities or being invisible as are all such elemental forms which partake of nature of both animal and human life in a degree and in a certain combination. The highest form are semi-human in intelligence, the plane of human mind. So now, the plane of human mind in its seven subdivisions comprises of those manifestations of life and mentality which are common to man in its various degrees or grades and divisions. In this connection, we wish to point out the fact that the average man of today comprise but the fourth subdimension of the plane of human mind, and only the most intelligent have crossed the border of the fifth subdivision. So now you gotta understand this, or you gotta know this. It has taken the race millions of years to reach this stage, and it will take many more years for the race to move to the sixth or seventh subdivision and beyond the races before us, which have passed through these degrees and then on to higher planes. Our own race is the fifth, which with strugglers from the fourth, which has set foot upon the path. So now, so now, oh, then there are few advanced souls of our own race who have outstripped the masses and who have passed on to the sixth and seventh subdivision, and some few beings still further on. The man on the sixth subdivision will be the Superman, will be the Superman. He of the seventh will be the Overman. In our condition of the seven manner mental plane, we have merely referred to the three elementary planes in a general way. We do not wish to go into this subject in detail in this work, for it does not belong to this part of the general philosophy and teaching. But we may say this, or I may say this, in order to have you a little clear idea on the reactions of these planes to the more familiar ones. The elementary planes bear the same reaction to the planes of mineral, planet, animal, and human mentality and life, that the black eye or the black keys on the piano do to the white keys. So now the white keys are sufficient to produce music, but there are certain scale, melodies, and harmonies in which the black keys play their parts and in which their presence is necessary. They are also necessary as connecting links of soul condition entity states between the several other planes, certain forms of development being attained therein. These last facts given to the reader who can. So, a new light upon the process of evolution and a new key to the secret door of the lips of life between kingdom and kingdoms. So now, the great kingdoms of elementals are fully recognized by all accounts. The esoteric writings are full of mentions of them, or they fully mention them. The readers of Bauer, Zaoni, and similar tales will recognize the entities inhabiting these planes of life, passing on from the great mental plane to the great spiritual plane, which shall say, how can we explain these higher states of being, life, and mind to minds as yet unable to grasp and understand the higher subdivisions of the plane of human mind? The task is impossible. Yes, so now the task is impossible. We can speak only in the most general terms. How may light be described to a man born blind? How sugar to a man who has never tasted anything sweet? How harmony to one born deaf? All that we can say is that the seven manner of the great spiritual planes, each manner plane having its seven subdivisions, comprise being possessing lives or possessing life, mind, and form as far above that of mind of today as the latter is above the earthworm, mineral, or even certain forms of energy or matter. The life of these beings so far transcends ours that we cannot even think of the details of the same. Their minds, they are so far transcended. Ours, they are not that transcended. So now, to them, we seem to think, and our mental processes seem almost kin to material processes. The matter of which their forms are composed in the highest planes of matter. Some even say to the closest in pure energy. So, what may be said of such beings? On the seven-man plane of the great spiritual plane exist beings of whom we may speak of as, or whom we can speak as angels, archangels, demigods. On the lower manner planes dwell those great souls whom we call masters and adepts. Above them come the great of archangels and thinkable to man. So now, and above those come those who may without be called the gods. So high in the scale of being are they, their being, intelligence, and power being akin of those attributes by the races of man to their conception of deity. These beings are beyond human imagination, the word divine being the only one applicable to them. Many of these beings are, as well as the angelic hosts, take the greatest interest in the affairs of the universe and play an important part in its affairs. So now, these unseen these unseen entities or angels help extend their influence freely and help powerfully in the process of evolution and cosmic progress. Their caution, intervention, and existence in human affairs lead to the many legends. So now, beliefs, religions, and traditions of the race, past and present, they have superimposed their knowledge and superpower upon the world again and again, all under the law of the all of cause. But yet, even the highest of these advanced beings exist merely as creations of and in the mind of the all, and are subject to the cosmic processes and universal laws. They are still mortal. We may call them gods if we like, but still they are but the elders of the race, the advanced souls who have outstripped their beneath and who have forgone the entes of absorption by the all in order to help the race on its upward journey along the path. But they belong to the universe and are subject to its conditions. They are mental are and their plane is below that of absolute spirit. So now, only the most advanced Hermetics are able to grasp the inner teachings regarding the state of existence and the powers manifested on the spiritual planes. The phenomena is so much higher than that of the mental planes that a confusion of ideas would surely result from an attempt to describe the same. So now, the only only those whose minds have been carefully trained along the lines of the Hermetic philosophy for years, yes, those who have brought with them from other insertions knowledge acquired previously, can comprehend just what is meant by the teachings regarding these spiritual planes, and much of in these inner teachings is held by the Hermetics has been too sacred, has been too sacred or sacred, important, and even dangerous for the general public dismissions. The intelligent student may recognize what we mean by this when I state that the meaning of spirit as used by the Hermetics is akin to living power, emanated force, inner essence of life, which meaning must not be confounded, which that usually commonly employed in connection with the term. So now, the religious, essential, spiritual, ethereal aura. To the occultists, the word spirit is used in the sense of the emanating principle, carrying with it the idea of power, living energy, mystic force, and occultists know that which is known of them as spiritual power may be employed for evil as well as good ends in accordance with the principle of polarity. So now, a fact which has been recognized by the majority of religions in their conception of Satan, the devil, Lucifer, fallen angels, and so the knowledge regarding these planes has been kept in the or esoteric and occultic order in the secret chamber of the temple. Mhm. Now, this may be considered this may be said here that those who have attained higher spiritual powers and have misused them have a terrible fate in store for them, and the swing of the pendulum or the swing of the pendulum of rhythm we invented the swing them back to the furthest extreme material existence, from which point they must retrace their steps spiritward along the weary rounds of the path, but as or but always with the added torture of having always with the same lingering memory of the highest from which they fell owing to their evil actions. The legends of the fallen angels have a basics in actual facts, as all advanced occultists know. The striving for selfishness power on the spiritual plane results in selfishness soul losing its spiritual balance and falling back as far as it had previously risen. So now, but even such a soul, the opportunity of return is given, and such a soul make return journey, paying the terrible penalty according to the invariable law. In conclusion, we would again remind you that according to the principle of correspondence, which embodies the truth as above, so below, as below, so above, all of these seven Hermetic principles are fully operational on all of the many planes, physical, mental, and spiritual. The principle of mental substance, of course, applies to the all planes, for all held in the mind of the all. The principle of correspondence manifests in all, for there is a correspondence, harmony, and agreement between the several planes. So now, The principle of vibration manifests on all planes. In fact, the vary every difference that go to make the planes arise from vibration. As we have explained, the principle of polarity manifests on each plane. The extreme of the poles being apparent opposite and considerate. The principle of rhythm manifests on each plane. The movement of the phenomenon having its ebb and flow, rising and flow, incoming and outgoing. The principle of cause and effect manifests on each plane, every effect having its cause and every cause having its effect. The principle of gender manifests on each plane, the creative energy being always manifest and operating along lines of masculine and feminine aspects. Hmm? So now, as above, so below. As below, so above. These centuries of old Hermetic occultism embodies one of the great principles of universal phenomena as we or processed processed with our consideration of the meaning principle. We will see even more clearly the truth of the universal nature of this great principle of correspondence or rhythm manifests on each plane, the movement of the phenomena having its ebb and inflow, rise and flow, income and outgoing. It manifests on all planes. These laws always manifest, they will never stop being being and manifesting. So nobody is on our side. Nobody is on our side. Everything is planned. We are under control. They are trying to control our mind. There are some occultists who are on the higher plane. They know what they do, but they are not on our side. So the only thing we can do right now, or the only thing we can do is to master our mind, know ourselves, master our mind, meditate, know the fourth dimension. These people, they are not on our side. Their mission is to trap us in the 3D reality. They don't want us reaching heaven, knowing the all, being with the all. They separate us. They don't want us knowing each other. So we gotta master our mind, know ourselves. We are all one. We emanated from the mind. Everything that we see came from the mind. It doesn't exist. Everything was a thought, then it manifested in the 3D reality. That's all I wanted to talk about in this video. Nature be with you.